What's up, y'all? Erebus here with some more Dark Souls PvP fun times. And today, we're going to be Giant Dad Remastered. So we're going to be talking about Giant Dad. Also, I wanted a word for fastest gank spank ever on this first clip. I'm sure people have actually, crushed ganks faster than that, but still, that was, under 30 seconds from start to finish? Pretty proud of that one. But we're going to be talking about Giant Dad today, and specifically, how good or bad is the Giant Dad? Yeah, I rhymed. Deal with it. But we're going to be talking about the strengths of the build, the weaknesses of the build, basically everything about Giant Dad. Getting super memey today. So Giant Dad I would describe as a noob crusher. Specifically for people who are inexperienced with PvP or new to Dark Souls in general. This build is a damn nightmare. And there's a few reasons for that. First of all, Zweihander. Chaos Zweihander. With lots of soft humanity to make that damage go up. Look at that damage. Look at that damage on R1s. It's absurd. Additionally, the Zweihander is one of those magical weapons that has infinite stun lock. So if you don't know how to toggle escape, more on that later. If you don't know how to toggle escape, you are screwed once you get hit with one R1. Because with Giant Dad's immense stamina pool, if they catch you once, they're going to be able to catch you, in a 3 or 4 hit combo that's going to just instantly kill most characters. Most characters don't have the vigor to handle that kind of crap. So, R1 spam is a real problem from a Giant Dad. Additionally, if you try to block that Zweihander, first of all, you're going to get chip damage from the Chaos Infusion. But secondarily, there's that Black Flame, which can break guards pretty intensely. It also breaks poise pretty intensely. And does a pretty decent amount of damage in its own right. Now, I don't think I actually used Black Flame a single time in this video. Most of these clips came from a Giant Dad stream that I did. And I know I used Black Flame a little bit during the stream, but I don't think any of these clips feature it. But that's also a useful tool in the Giant Dad tool belt. But there are some pretty strong ways to counter the build. The first one, which I mentioned already, is toggle escaping. Beautiful, beautiful toggle escaping. It's really important to know. So, if you don't know how to do that, I highly suggest you learn. Basically, you just hit right or left on the D-pad to switch your equipment, and that gives you iframes where you can roll out. The second one, I actually just did to this pseudo-Giant Dad, although he was wielding a club, not a Zweihander, but same principle. The R1s are incredibly slow. Incredibly slow. So Giant Dad is extremely easy to roll backstab. As long as you've got, a decent understanding of spacing, you can pretty well bait out that R1 and just roll behind and backstab Giant Dad. It's pretty simple to do. The second pretty fat counter to Giant Dad is setup parries. So the timing on the Zweihander is pretty easy to get down and understand. With most shields, you're going to take very little damage from blocking the first R1, and most Giant Dads aren't going to stop after R1. Now, if you encounter an experienced player who's playing on Giant Dad for whatever reason, it's possible that if they R1 into your shield, they won't R1 again. But most people that use the build are just R1 spamming. Look at this guy pop into existence. Hello there. Most people are just R1 spamming if they're using Giant Dad, so you could pretty easily just block the first R1 and set up for the parry on the second R1. Now, if you don't have a shield typically, you like to use maybe a Cestus or Bare Hand or, whatever, you can also pretty well sight parry the first R1. The only thing with that is it takes a little bit more understanding of the timings. It takes a bit more predictive capability, although you can pretty much reaction parry ultras to an extent. There's still a bit of prediction involved, but you can sort of reaction parry them. So, you know, if you're a little bit more experienced, you can pretty easily just side parry that first R1. So, in summation there, Giant Dad is very easy to parry. He's also very easy to backstab. So, for any player who's relatively experienced, Giant Dad is kind of a joke. And toggle escapes. Don't forget toggle escapes. So if you can toggle escape, you can backstab, roll backstab pretty well, and or you can parry pretty well. Giant Dad should not be a problem. Because like I said, the build really relies on people trying to trade with it and losing to poise, because Giant Dad has a lot of poise. Although you can have more poise than Giant Dad. So, you know, you can actually trade a little bit and not get stuck in the infinite stun lock. But for most players, the build of Giant Dad is designed to lure them into trading, then infinitely stun locking them to death with R1s. And, you know, in that sense, it's kind of a gimmick build. It's kind of like your Dark Beat spamming sorcerer, you know. Like, it's a one-trick pony, and if you can't beat the trick, then you're going to get wrecked by it pretty reliably. But if you know the trick, then it's pretty damn easy to counter. Now, this chap actually had some pretty good tools at his disposal. I see they're just trying to hit me with the force. This is actually a 3 or 4 minute invasion, and I just cut most of it out to get to the interesting part. But up top of this little area, right up there, there's a little narrow ledge. He was trying to bait me on it to force me off, which was not a bad plan. But it turned out that I had more willpower, I guess. But the first several minutes of this invasion was him trying to lure me up there and me trying to bring him down here. And us just L1 dancing at each other infinitely. But eventually, he gets bored and I bring him down here. His Phantom doesn't come down to help him, which I thought was weird. And he gets sucked into a melee battle, which given his Crown of Dusk, I don't think he's a melee character, so that was the mistake there. And that's one of the things where I said it depends sometimes on how experienced the player using Giant Dad is. I wouldn't call myself an expert or any bullshit like that. If you've been watching me for any length of time, you're well aware that I consider myself average. Maybe upper tier average nowadays, but still relatively average. Definitely not a top tier player. And the reason that I won that invasion against the Crown of Dusk person is I waited them out, I had more patience, and I sucked them into a situation that was advantageous for me. But a lesser experienced player, or at least a less patient player, probably would have rushed that situation and would have gotten killed. So, you know, the experience level does matter in these invasions. Also, still loving the fact that you cannot do fog wall escapes in DSR unless you have a fair amount of time. But not instantly invincible as soon as you touch a fog wall. So much delight. But at any rate, so yeah, the level of experience of the player using Giant Dad does have some bearing on how the battle's going to go. That said, even the most experienced player can't completely account for the flaws that the Giant Dad build has. You know, an expert player can't help the fact that they're slow as shit, which makes them easy to backstab or parry. You know, it's not something that you can really prevent. It is something that, for even a player at my experience level, let alone like a true PvP expert, you can account for those things to some extent, and you can make sure that you're not in a position to be punished very often. So that can happen, but those flaws are still there, and if you know how to exploit them, you won't have too much trouble with the Giant Dad. I've only actually fought a couple Giant Dads, believe it or not, but as a host, I think I was invaded by maybe 3 or 4 of them so far since the remaster came out. And I think I either didn't lose ever, or I lost maybe once to the Giant Dad build. Just because, again, that's not saying that I'm, you know, good at PvP or anything. In fact, when I started with the remaster, I was terrible at PvP in this game. But that's one thing, you know, skill level is only part of it. A real big chunk of it is just knowing how to counter. And I would say, honestly, for most of these battles that you're seeing here, the battles themselves don't matter. The actual fight is irrelevant. The battle's decided from the get-go by two questions. One, how experienced of a player is using Giant Dad, and the answer is relatively experienced. Again, not an expert or anything, but I know what's what. And two, do they know how to counter it? And with the people in these clips, they don't. For most of these players, if they even just knew how to toggle escape, that one thing, these battles could have gone very differently. I'm not going to say for sure that they would have beat me, but they would have definitely had a much better chance. The battles would have been longer, and they certainly could have clinched out a victory if they only knew how to toggle escape. Like, look at this right here. Just, there's nothing to do, you know, for these players other than to just sit there and take it because they don't know toggle escapes. Good backstab though from that chap. And he was gonna try to chain backstab me, which, hey, good attempt, man, good attempt. But yes, I mean, for most of these players, if they just knew how to toggle escape, these would have all gone very differently. In addition to toggle escaping, if they, you know, tried parrying a bit more, if they're familiar with it, or, you know, going for those roll backstabs on the super slow R1s, they would have had a real serious shot. So, to answer the question I raised toward the beginning of the video, how good or bad is Giant Dad? It really depends. It's kind of a gimmick build, and it's amazing for people who are not super familiar with PvP, and it's pretty terrible against anyone who knows what they're doing. So, you know, take that for what you will. It's great in certain situations, but really easy to counter and crappy in others. And here's a more or less mirror match, by the way, other than the fact that this other Giant Dad is using a terrible weapon, one of the blacksmith hammers. But otherwise, more or less mirror match. GG. Nice parry attempts, my man. But anyway, that's it for today. Just wanted to talk a bit about Giant Dad, so hopefully you either learned something or at least got a kick out of hearing my take / seeing Giant Dad in action. But at any rate, that's it for today, so hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful day, and we'll see you next time.